I grew up in a house where you said, I love you, and you also labeled the leftovers. It wasn't cold. It was kind. Boundaries meant tomorrow wouldn't punish today. That makes me sound like a clipboard. But I'm good at picnics and playlists. I just also like labels. Alex is sunshine on sale. He's the guy who remembers the server's name and tips well, and tells you that any problem can be solved with a vibe. When we first moved in together, he said a sentence I didn't recognize as a red flag at the time. I hate having to ask you for passwords. It makes me feel like a kid. He framed it as partnership. I heard it as we are a team. We got a family seat on a password manager so we wouldn't keep our lives in post-it cryptograms. It's safer, he said, and more romantic. Which sure, why not? Candles and two-factor authentication. The first weird thing was small. I noticed a shared cloud album called Receipts flicker. Photos appeared and vanished like someone whispering on the other end of a call. I thought I was sloppy tapping and archiving my own stuff, so I let it go. Then I saw a hidden album I didn't create. Not a crime, just a tickle. Around the same time, our points account, you can pool miles if you're engaged because someone in marketing believes in love, sent a cheerful note that some rewards were redeemed. Alex said he transferred them to a gift flight for his cousin. He did the grin he uses to close tabs in conversations. Then came helpfulness that didn't help. Mail from a store credit line I never opened showed up at his mother's place. She texted me a photo of the envelope with a thumbs-up emoji. We forward things here so nothing gets lost, she wrote. We don't live there. I don't get mail there. I told Alex and he said, my mom just likes to be useful. When I asked if he added my name to her forwarding address, he laughed. Do you have to make everything litigious? I don't. I want to make things boring. Boring is safe. There were other crumbs. He set up our family password manager and, like the generous man he is, offered to migrate my logins for me because you're always helping everyone. Let me help you. I let him because dishwashers and love languages. Months later, I realized there were 2 admin seats. Mine and one called family that wasn't a person. When I asked why, he said, that's how they design it, babe. It is not. Or more honestly, it didn't have to be. The cousin flight story kept echoing when a random photo in the shared album tagged itself with a location that wasn't the cousin city. It was a sunlit hotel hallway and a hand holding a coffee cup with a hotel logo that doesn't live near his cousin. I recognized the nail polish because I have eyes and friends. Lena. Someone who used to be my friend until her texts went dry and her hugs started landing off-center. I didn't want to become a red string wall person. So I did what I do at work when a student says, my group project member ghosted me but says they didn't. I wrote down the facts and stopped arguing with feelings. I made a folder on my desktop called Noise versus Evidence. I shared album log, the hidden albums recently added, and hidden/unhidden timestamps. When you open the info pane, you can see when a photo went in and came out even if no one captions it. I took screenshots with the iPanel open. The hallway pic bounced in and out like someone was tidying a crime scene. A loyalty/points statement. A receipt shows what the miles were redeemed for, 2 tickets, and the dates. It didn't say names because privacy cosmetics, but it did show a destination. The cousin lives nowhere near that beach. A password manager event. Family seat family accessed entries from a new device with a name that looked like a burner. Not illegal. But like a magician's assistant, it told me which curtain to watch. A mail/courier photo. His mother sent a photo of a bank envelope with my name and her address. Under it I typed one sentence in the Notes app. Useful doesn't equal authorized. A email header excerpt. Alex forwarded me a confirmation for an anniversary dinner reservation and somehow, in the headers, revealed he'd first sent it to another email that includes Lena's handle, then to me. I don't live in his drafts. I live in the to line. I didn't confront. Every sentence he says during a confrontation turns into confetti. Instead, I nudged. Do you ever use the hidden album? I asked in the kitchen. Only for gifts, he said. Do you ever add your mom's address to my accounts? You're overthinking, he said. Do you transfer our points for anyone who isn't us? What is marriage if not sharing? He said. genuinely believing he had given me poetry. When I floated the words prenup and budget and vendor contracts, he smiled like I'd said tulips. He wants a party. I want a receipt that says what we paid for. So I did something I know how to do without turning our house into a courtroom. I planted a small, ethical tripwire. Our venue and caterer both had boilerplate agreements with rescheduling clauses. I asked each to add one line in plain English. Vendor clause: if deceit or illegal activity directly impacting the event is discovered, affairs with shared funds, misused access, hidden debts, client may cancel immediately without refund. Deposits may be applied to administrative/legal costs. The manager at the venue texted, "You okay?" And I said, "This is just life-proofing." She shrugged in emoji. They countersigned. Jade, patron saint of reasonable friends, came over with pasta and her eyebrows. I told her the facts and not the feelings. She asked me the question I ask my students when they spiral. What would future you thank present you for? I said, for not making a scene before the facts finish their sentences. She said, and if the facts are finished? I said, then I will cancel the party with the clause I added and move my things with a list, not a scream. She hugged me hard enough to reset my posture. Here's the part where I admit I still wanted to be wrong. I left little kindness traps for my own heart. I took an afternoon and put my favorite photos of us in a private album and invited him to it to see if he would notice and stop hiding things in the shadow album. He heart-reacted and then immediately switched back to the hidden one that had the hallway photo. It wasn't the act of a mastermind. It was the act of someone who thinks nothing is real until someone cries. The points ledger posted another redemption. This time I checked the date against the shared calendar event he had titled Guys Weekend. The destination matched the beach hotel again. The messages with his guys were full of inside jokes that didn't mention sand. The shared calendar had a busy block for me titled Self-Care Day, smiley face, that I did not create. He was scheduling my day so he could schedule his. I did one small, kind of petty thing I'm not proud of, but it kept me from narrating. I created a dummy password entry in the Family Manager labeled OP's Flight Check-In, with a unique note only I would recognize. It got accessed from the family seat while I was sitting across from him watching a show. Password Manager event. Family seat used. Device name: Alex iPad. Time: evening. He doesn't have an iPad. His mother does. The kid, who never wants to ask for passwords, also never wants to let go of them. I asked him to sit down, not to accuse him but to draw a boundary. I said, if there is someone else, I won't scream. I will just opt out of financing it and I will opt out of sharing data with you. If there isn't, I need you to close the family seat and set the manager to 2 admins, 2 devices, no more. He kissed my forehead and said, you're tired. I said, then let me rest in a home where no one forwards my mail to your mother. He did the classic move. After the wedding, we can fix any of this. I said, before the wedding is where we prove we can. He refused to choose honesty or change. He chose fog. So here is my plan, which is why I'm here asking strangers if I am the villain of this rom-com that turned into a procedural. I have a final check to run. Jade convinced me to request a points transfer history export, not just the cute dashboard. If the export confirms 2 tickets overlapping with his Guys Weekend, I will consider that the proof the party owes me my deposits. I will go to the venue payment meeting with a printed copy of the vendor clause, and, if the export confirms what the hallway photo already says, I will activate the clause. Cancel without refund and apply deposits to admin/legal costs. In plain words, I won't fund a celebration that's already staged on my dignity. I will quietly remove my accounts from the Password Manager family seat and rotate my critical logins. Not because he's a supervillain, but because I'm done letting teamwork be code for no privacy. I will forward the mail photo to the bank with 1 sentence. This address is not authorized for me. I will not publish a manifesto. I will take my things, my dog, and my playlists, and I will leave the confetti to people who enjoy vacuuming. I'm not looking for legal advice. I already talked to someone at work who knows how to say, that clause is enforceable without breaking out in hymns. I am asking if I'm the A*** hole for planning to cancel a wedding and expose an affair based on receipts gathered through the very family conveniences he sold me as romance. I know people hide mistakes because they're ashamed, not because they're plotting. I also know shame looks a lot like effort when you're the one paying the bill. Part of me keeps daring hope to show up with a trench coat and say, "You missed something, it's actually fine." The larger part of me threw Hope a blanket and told her to nap while the adults handle it. If my last check confirms what everything else already sings, I will be the woman who canceled her wedding because she refused to pretend trust is a vibe. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize for the suspicion and will build new rules that use less sharing, not more. AITA for planning to pull the plug and show the receipts if the shared logins and points trail match the hallway photo and the hidden album I didn't create. Evidence, plain words so far. A shared album log, hidden/unhidden timestamps around a hotel hallway photo that doesn't match our calendar. A loyalty/point statement. Pooled miles redeemed for 2 tickets to a beach destination that isn't Cousin City. Our password manager event. Family seat accessing entries from devices I don't own during Guy's weekend. A mail/courier photo. My name on an envelope sent to his mother's address, which I never authorized. A email header excerpt. A reservation confirmation sent to another account before it was forwarded to me. A vendor clause. No deceit, immediate cancellation without refund. Deposits to admin/legal costs. Update 1. I treated my life like a student appeal. Gather the record, translate it into plain words, and don't let panic be the stenographer. 1. Loyalty/points export. Full. The public dashboard is cute. The export is adult. I requested the itemized transfer/redemption log instead of the confetti screen. The file didn't show passenger names, privacy makeup, but it did show number of tickets, origin/destination pairs, and redemption type. There were 2 award tickets to the same beach city that starred in the hotel hallway photo, redeemed within the same window as Alex's Guy's weekend. A separate line showed a small transfer from our pool to a family account alias that isn't mine. I highlighted nothing. I wrote 1 sentence. 2 seats left our balance for the beach. A transfer warmed them up. 2. Shared album log. Hidden/unhidden timeline. I scrolled the info pane with the little I that tells you when a photo goes in, out, or gets tucked under a blanket. The hallway photo hopped in and out around the same period as the points redemption. In that span, 2 selfies of Lena showed up for seconds, then vanished. The app still writes down the moment something existed even if someone hopes it didn't. I took screenshots with the timestamps visible and labeled them like a museum placard. Appearance, disappearance, reappearance. 3. Password manager event. Seat/device. Our family seat has an activity feed if you click past the adorable branding. It showed the family admin accessing entries from Alex's iPad. We do not own an iPad. And a device name that looked freshly minted, like Mom's iPad 2. The access correlated with calendar blocks he labeled Guy's weekend. I exported the log and wrote the translation in plain English. A seat that isn't a person pulled our keys while I sat on the couch. 4. Email header excerpt. Routing. That anniversary reservation he forwarded? Headers told on the journey. First sent to an address that wears Lena's handle like a name tag, then forwarded to me with a note about surprises. I printed the full header once for the nerds, and a 1-line translation once for my heart. The invitation stopped at not me before it came to me. 5. Mail/courier photo address. His mother's photo of a bank envelope with my name at her address grew a cousin. A courier photo showing a store card letter signed for at her door. I don't get mail there. I sent 1 comm message to the bank's report address change form. This address is not authorized for me. I attached the photo, not a speech. 6. Family seat test. Decoy note. I'd already planted a decoy entry, OP's flight check-in, with a phrase only I'd recognize. Pinged as opened while we sat side by side. This time, the feed said the seat used emergency access. The feature with the warm name that lets relatives help if you're, say, hospitalized. Used here to help with a beach. I wrote, Emergency means emergency, not itinerary. Talk to him, the part of my brain that still orders heart-shaped pancakes said. So I did, but like a person who has to pass an audit later. We sat at the dining table. I put 3 pages down, not like exhibits, like postcards from a trip I didn't take. Points, export line, album log screenshots, password seed activity. I said, if this is a misunderstanding, I want to understand. If it isn't, I'm not financing the party about to be thrown over my head. He went quiet in that way that feels like a kindness until you realize silence is just a tarp. Then came lines I could have written for him. I transferred points to family, not a person. The album is for gifts, you're snooping meaning into nothing. My mom stepped in with addresses because you forget to check the mail. I told him I was open to an explanation that included verbs, not missed. He said, you're turning love into policy. I said, I'm keeping love from turning into a receipt I didn't approve. Vendors tightened. I emailed the venue and caterer a short addendum. Please acknowledge receipt of the no-deceit clause and confirm that if activated, deposits will be applied to admin/legal costs immediately. They both replied in writing, confirmed. One manager added, we'll need just one sentence from you at the time. I drafted it and practiced in the mirror so my voice wouldn't tremble. Per clause 7, cancel due to deceit tied to shared funds. Apply deposits to admin/legal. Accounts hardened. I pulled my critical logins out of the family manager, bank, payroll, health, and set unique passwords and authenticator app codes. Plain words. Little rolling numbers that live on my phone only. I left the grocery list and streaming logins. I'm not here to burn the pantry. Calendar cleaned. The shared calendar had an event labeled Self-Care Day, smiley face, that I didn't create, scheduled over my last free afternoon before the final venue payment. I deleted it and added one new block called Meeting, Contract Review, and invited the venue. He didn't accept the invite because he doesn't like the story when it has chapter titles. Jade briefed. She read everything, chewed her sleeve, and asked the question that always finds the hinge. Do you need him to confess or do you just need the paper to stop lying? I said, I need the paper to stop lying. She said, then you can stop asking the person who benefits from fog to help you see. His family pressure campaign. His mother called with the tone of a hospital volunteer and said, he's under stress. Planning is hard on men. I said, using shared miles for a not-me beach is not a symptom. She said, don't punish the whole family over a miscommunication. I said, I'm not punishing anyone. I'm declining to underwrite it. She said, handle it after the wedding. I said, before the wedding is where you decide if there is one. University brain activated. I wrote a 1-paragraph personal policy, the same way I coach students to write project rules so the group can't gaslight later. I will not share admin access with anyone who uses family seats to create extra keys. I will not pool points with anyone who spends them without me in the room. If deceit touches our contracts, I will cancel using the clause we both signed. I will not argue about the meaning of photos. I will compare logs to calendars. I stuck it on the fridge. The paper did not set off sprinklers. It just sat there waiting to be true. The final check, the one I promised myself I'd run before I pulled any levers, came through with a human on the phone from the loyalty program who explained in polite, non-specific words, we can't give names, but I can confirm the redemption comprised 2 seats. The travel began during the period you mentioned. He paused as if to put a hand on my shoulder through the receiver. Please secure your account. We can split your pool if needed. I thanked him like he'd just held a door open, because maybe that's all this is, a door. 7. Loyalty support note. Human translation. I documented the call in my folder. 2 seats. Travel overlapped. Support offered pool split. No heroics. Just nouns. Then I ran into the small trap of hope. Alex brought home flowers and said, let's put a pin in logistics. I asked, do the logistics include not using emergency access on a password for a flight I didn't take? He said I was performing trust issues. I said I was requesting boundaries, which is the stage name for love when it stops winning talent shows. Vendors, readied. I scheduled the final payment meeting for the venue and sent them my clause sentence ahead of time so no one had to watch me type with shaking hands. The manager replied, "Understood. If invoked, we will issue a written cancellation showing clause number and application of deposits." I put that email behind my other papers like a spine. Living arrangements, prepped. I took a weekend to clear a small stash of essentials to Jade's place. Spare charger, toiletries, a few outfits, that one book I reread when my brain itches. Not because I wanted drama, but because I like toothpaste. I didn't announce it. I just stopped trusting the sock drawer to be a plan. Mail reset. I filed a do not forward note with the post office for my name and set alerts for any change. Plain words. I wrote down "stop helping." I also asked my bank to require verbal PIN for any address changes and annotated my file. No joint changes without OP on the line. Family seat neutralized. I changed the family manager from 2 admins to 1 admin, me, plus 1 emergency contact, Jade, and revoked emergency access for every other seat. Alex got a polite app notification that read like a party ending early. Admin privileges adjusted by owner. He asked if I was kicking him out of his own house. I said, "I'm locking the shed where you keep the extra keys." He said, "You're overreacting." I said, "I'm resuming custody of my life. So now I'm on the edge of the lever I said I'd pull." Next stop is the venue meeting where money turns into a promise. If the paper in my folder says what I think it says, I will say the sentence and watch the manager nod and the deposit become paperwork for my peace instead of balloons for my humiliation. I feel strangely calm, like the moment before an exam when you realize you didn't need to memorize as much as you thought. You just needed to sleep and show up with a pen. If you're wondering why I haven't yelled or thrown anything, because I don't want to carry the echo. I want to carry a folder and a dog and a playlist and the knowledge that I did not mistake convenience for consent. Update 2. The venue manager met us in a quiet office that smelled like starch and flower water. The mock-up centerpiece sat in the corner like a guest who arrived too early. Alex came buoyant, doing his "we'll laugh about this later" smile. I brought a thin folder and Jade sat beside me, legal pad closed, which is her version of a seatbelt. The manager opened with logistics. Final head count, final layout, final payment. I took a breath and read the sentence I'd practiced. Per clause 7. I'm canceling due to deceit tied to shared funds. Please apply deposits to administrative and legal costs. Alex reached for my wrist like he could rewind sound. "Babe, you're doing a bit. Just pay today, we'll talk later." The manager looked at the contract, looked at my face, and then read the clause out loud. She didn't flinch. No deceit or illegal activity directly impacting the event, immediate cancellation without refund. Deposits may be applied to administrative/legal costs. She slid a pre-printed form across the table. "If you're invoking, I'll just need your signature here." I kept my voice even. "I am invoking," Alex whispered. "This is insane." Jade said, "This is a contract. Because I promised myself not to perform, I offered no monologue." I laid 3 pages from my folder in a line like labels on Tupperware. Points export, excerpt. 2 award seats to the beach during Guy's weekend. A shared album log, screens. Hide/unhide stamps around a hotel hallway and 2 selfies that flickered. A password seat activity. Emergency access used by the family admin from a device we don't own. I will not finance a celebration while our shared tools fund and hide someone else, I said. The manager nodded, not judge, just pen. She signed vendor cancellation memo, on the spot. Clause 7 invoked by client A. Deposits applied to admin/legal. Event date released. She printed a receipt and placed it on my side of the table like a small peace treaty. Alex pulled the cousin story back out like a thrifted excuse. Those were family miles. It wasn't a secret. I turned the receipt over and wrote in the margin so I could read it later when feelings try to edit. 2 tickets plus wrong city plus hidden album plus emergency access. I slid it back to myself. Facts are portable. We walked from venue office to caterer. Same complex. Weddings are malls in disguise. I said the same sentence. The caterer's manager, a man whose scene's centerpieces survived divorces, nodded like a metronome and countersigned. Caterer confirmation. Cancellation per clause. Deposits retained to offset prep/staffing. No further services. He wished us good luck, the way people do when they're telling you luck lives in paperwork. Outside, Alex tried to recast the scene as a misunderstanding we could fix after. You're nuking my reputation, he said, like a Yelp page in pain. You're confusing a party with a promise, I said. He asked if we could at least keep the photographer, as if the camera could take a picture of a truth that didn't exist. I texted the photographer a short version of the same line. She replied with a soft heart and a refund of a tiny non-essential fee I hadn't expected back. Photographer note. Proud of you for holding a line. I put it in the folder for later under self-respect. His mother called while we were still in the parking lot. She didn't say hello. You hauled our family through mud for a mix-up, she announced. I said, 2 seats, hidden album, emergency access. She said, that's technical. I said, that's evidence. She pivoted to a hymn about forgiveness. I said, forgiveness happens after truth, not instead of it. She hung up with a sigh that wanted me to be her daughter already. Back home, I moved like a person in a fire drill, no running, all purpose. I packed a quiet suitcase, scanned the last paper, fed the dog, and put my keys on the hook the way you do when you still live somewhere for one more night. Alex tried new scripts on old furniture. Don't we matter? Can't we fix this without documents? I said, I tried fixing it with conversations. You chose convenience over consent. He said, you're making me feel like a criminal. I said, I'm making the record stop pretending. He asked, finally, about the proof. I handed him copies. Points export line, album stamps, password feed. He scanned, then attempted a pivot to intent. I wasn't cheating. I was testing if we could travel easy. I didn't laugh because I didn't want the sound of it to stay here. Travel is not a moral noun, I said. 2 tickets during a lie are a sentence. I took the dog and Jade drove us to her place, the way you drive a friend who got her wisdom teeth out. No speeches, just ice water and a couch. She set my folder on the coffee table like a centerpiece. We watched something dumb enough to scrub edges off the day. I slept like a binder, flat, purposeful. The next morning, I did the non-cinematic parts people never put in montages. A family seat revocation notice. I removed the family admin, disabled emergency access, and made Jade the only emergency contact. The app confirmed. Ownership settings changed by OP. A loyalty pool split confirmation. Support split the points pool so future love can't spend past me. The note said, household separation processed. Bank and mail. My verbal pin held. Change attempts now require me on the line. The post office flagged my name against unauthorized forwarding. A cloud albums. I exported the photos I love and left the shared album. If there's a baby I never meet in there someday, I hope they're fed and safe. They will not be my proof. Lena texted me a paragraph that used the word friendship like a bandage. I didn't reply. I'm not a judge. I just don't share a toothbrush with fire. That afternoon, Alex came to Jade's to talk like adults. He brought a bag of groceries and grief face. He offered context I didn't request. He felt unseen. I'm controlling. His mother meant well. I said control is what people call boundaries when they don't benefit from them. He said he'd delete the hidden album. I said, we can't restore trust by emptying a trash bin. He asked for another chance at the party. I said, parties are for people who made promises in daylight. He left with his bag. The lettuce hit the trash like a symbol. He tried one more gambit, sent a shared calendar invite titled Reset. The location was a restaurant by the water. I replied no, the simple kind, the kind that doesn't require reasons. He wrote a wall of text about second chances that began to sound like a hostage letter from his pride. I muted the thread. That night, I wrote myself a memo I could read on bad days. You didn't cancel joy. You canceled a lie. You paid deposits into your own peace. You used the tools people put in your hands and declined to be the villain in someone else's soft focus montage. I taped it to the folder. The folder now contains vendor cancellation memo, caterer confirmation, photographer note, loyalty pool split, family seat revocation, and the receipts that started this. It is thinner than a life and exactly thick enough to hold one. Where the engagement stands, paused like a song you're no longer humming. I didn't hurl the ring. I placed it in its box and texted Alex a time to pick his things up while I'm at work. I will not do a grand finale on the stoop. I will do a checklist. If he wants a narrative where I'm cruel, he can cast someone else. In my version, I just said the line I promised I'd say and let the clause do its job. Do I feel sad? Of course. Grief is what happens when a plan quits. But I don't feel sorry. Sorry is for mistakes. This was a decision. Final update. The part after the stamp is never cinematic. It's forms with kind subject lines and people who speak in patient sentences. It's also where I felt like myself again. Loyalty program. Household separation letter. A rep emailed a tidy paragraph confirming they had split our pooled miles and locked my portion behind a new security setting that requires a live rep to approve movement. Plain words. Points can't go on vacation without me noticing. They attached a small chart showing before and after. I printed it and wrote by hand. I do not travel by accident. Password manager. Ownership change receipt. The family manager sent an automated note. Emergency access disabled. Owner set to OP. Other admins removed. It looked like a sales pitch to most eyes. To mine, it was a door I could close. For the record folder, I added a post-it. Keys live with the person who locks the house. Bank/address. Confirmation. The bank acknowledged my address correction and added a verbal pin hold on all contact changes. They wrote in human. We will not change your address or add co-borrowers unless we verify with you directly. That's the sentence I wish every account had at the top of the page. Vendors. Final allocation. The venue and caterer sent final statements applying deposits to administrative time and prep already incurred. No grand speeches, just clean ledgers. I used to think non-refundable was a threat. Turns out it can be a boundary if you choose it on purpose. Alex tried a few more scripts. He sent a long message about how he never meant to cheat. He just needed attention. There was a line about how family logins were for convenience, not secrecy, and I misread romance. I wrote back once with a single paragraph so I could stop narrating in my head later. I asked for consent, not convenience. 2 tickets during a lie is a choice. I canceled a party, not your humanity. Please pick up your things on the day I listed. After that, communicate about logistics only. He asked to talk face to face. I declined. He came anyway, stood outside Jade's building and sent, I'm here. Jade texted him back, leave what you brought. The conversation is in writing. He left a bag with a sweatshirt and a letter that started with remember when, and tried to walk backward into a version of us that never learned the word emergency access. I put the sweatshirt in donations and filed the letter, unread, under, I can't carry 2 stories. Lena posted a blurry beach photo captioned healing on a private account that a friend of a friend showed me. I didn't message her. She sent one apology the length of a grocery list, full of words like miscommunication and complicated. I didn't weaponize silence. I used it to do laundry and reinstall my sense that I am not the committee for other people's choices. She can heal. I can also not be the hospital. Alex's mother left a voicemail singing the hymn of Family is Forgiveness. I kept it for a day because the sound of someone wanting your yes is a memory you should respect before you delete. Then I deleted it. My forgiveness is not a discount code. The university has counselors who teach students how to recover from group projects that implode. They also see staff. I sat with one who asked me to put the last months on an index card using only verbs. Mine read, noted, matched, revoked, canceled, moved, slept. She said, that's a story without villains. I said, that's the only one I can keep. She smiled in a way that made me like the entire building more. I found a small sublet near a park, the kind with a window that makes a rectangle of sun you can put a chair in. The lease was short and reasonable. The landlord asked if I wanted my mail forwarded from anywhere else. I laughed and said, "Please don't help." He nodded like he'd heard that before. I did the unglamorous repairs. I shared calendars. I made a fresh one for me and Jade, labeled in words that actually match days. I turned off the old one and exported only what was mine to keep. A cloud photos. I made a private album called Kept and moved the photos there that still feel like me. The rest I left behind, not as a moral stance but as a storage decision. A budget. I rerouted what used to be wedding into 3 columns. Savings, therapy, dumb joy. Dumb joy is plants and movie tickets and the kind of kitchen gadget that slices exactly one vegetable better than a knife. The passwords. I taught my mother how to use her own password manager, so my emergency contact doesn't mean anyone can rummage. Then came the quiet checks that prove a system is healed. My credit monitoring stayed flat. No more address nonsense. The loyalty account stopped chirping about helpful family redemptions. The password feed turned into a boring parade of me logging into my own life. Boring was delicious. There was one more letter I didn't expect. Photographer, courtesy note. She wrote that she would, at no charge, email me the engagement photos we'd already taken, so you can decide later what to keep. It was such a kind boundary, gift plus choice. I downloaded them and put them in a folder called Archive, not Alter. I want to be the person who can look at my own past without throwing it in the sea. Where things landed with Alex. We met in a neutral lobby with a list and a friend nearby as a witness. He returned the remaining documents and a small kitchen appliance I love. I gave him the ring. We signed a printed, "We're done" logistics list that just said, keys returned, accounts separated, deposits settled. He looked tired and young and tried one more time to find a rom-com door. "We could write new rules." I said, "You don't want rules. You want exceptions." He didn't argue. Exceptions are never hungry. They just eat you. After he left, I cried in the kind of way that doesn't want to be seen, silent, specific, not about him exactly but about the version of me who once thought family features meant we were on a nicer road. I told her she did great. She learned to say I don't share toothbrushes with fire and walk away. Because a few people messaged me privately asking, "What did you learn that might help us?" Here's the list I wrote for future me. It isn't legal advice. It's just the ordinary vocabulary that let me breathe. Convenience isn't consent. Family logins, pooled points, shared albums, the feature is neutral. The practice needs rules. If a rule makes you controlling, you should control that thing. Prove it in daylight. If someone says they are using pooled resources for a family, that family sits at the table with you. No table, no transfer. Emergency means emergency. If your tool has a warm name that can be pressed like a button, you need a colder practice around it. Write a sentence you can say under stress. Mine was per clause 7. Your sentence might be, "We pause when the paper and the calendar disagree." Practice out loud so your mouth remembers. Don't tie your sanity to a confession. People say what they can. Documents say what they are. Choose the one that will still be true tomorrow. Weeks, not dates. I promised myself I'd stop quantifying like a lab later. Jade and I carried my few boxes into the sublet. She hung one print and then insisted we take my dog to the park. We sat on a bench and watched a softball game full of people who care about bases and not about crisis. Felt holy. I got a message from a former student I had helped years ago when their group project went sideways. They wrote, "I remembered you said, when someone shows you they can't share, you can share the work of leaving." I finally understood it this week. I cried again, tethered to this life by the very work I had been trying to give away to someone else's charm. Is there a chance I'll wake up one day and think I overreacted? Maybe. But more likely I'll keep waking up in a home where my mail comes to my door and my points don't elope without me and the only albums with my face in them are ones I put there. If a new person walks into that home, they will learn how I label leftovers and why that is love. The ring box lives at the back of a drawer until I decide what story it belongs to. Maybe I'll sell it to fund a boring trip where the best part is the nap. Maybe I'll keep it to remember that people are not their worst day, including me. Either way, it will not be financing someone's healing hashtag. To the folks who read this and said, NTA, use the clause. Thank you. You had the vocabulary before I did. To the folks who said, this is technical, you were right. Not all love is poetry. Some love is settings. Some love is a folder you carry to a meeting and a sentence you practiced. Some love is the decision not to humiliate a person who already knows what they did. Am I the *** hole for canceling a wedding with one sentence and rebuilding my life with a handful of quiet settings? If so, I am the kind who sleeps. I'm the kind who returns keys and keeps the dog and buys plants that don't ask me to be more interesting than water and sun. Final evidence snapshot. A household split confirmation. Miles divided. Transfers require live verification. A password ownership receipt. Emergency access off. Only my admin remains. It's bank hold. Address changes require my voice. Co-borrower additions must be in room. If vendor statements. Clause invoked. Deposits permanently applied to admin/legal. Date released. A logistics list. Keys returned. Accounts separated. Ring exchanged. No further obligations.